Hey, welcome. It's Brian, and this is Adventurous Music Fridays. Every Friday, I try to bring a cool record that I love and hopefully introduce you to something new or maybe something you haven't heard before or a player, whatever it is. I'm talking about metal, jazz, free jazz, prog rock, rock and roll, whatever. I want to kind of introduce people to some of my favorite records, and hopefully it's something that kind of sparks your interest, and maybe you discover a new player, whether it's guitar, drums, or what have you. So today we are doing John Coltrane and the record Sunship. This record came out in 1965, or I should say it was recorded in 1965. Now, I'm not sure, or I don't remember if this actually was released in his lifetime. He died a couple of years after this was recorded. This is the quintessential Coltrane quartet, which of course is McCoy Tyner, Jimmy Garrison, and Elvin Jones. And this record is quite the departure. I have a hard time placing it in context with that late Coltrane stuff. There's a lot of amazing records from that period. I personally love the Live in Japan and Live in Seattle. Those kind of happened in, I think, 66, 67, not too long before he passed away. And then, of course, we have Ohm, which was recorded in Seattle. And I would assume most of those came out towards like the 70s, like early 70s, late 60s, after he had passed away, unfortunately. And to me, this record is very angular and it's just got some incredible stuff on it. The song itself, Sunship, is really an interesting piece from a Coltrane standpoint as far as composition. I'm sure Coltrane scholars would, be able to point out other songs like it, or maybe not. But Dearly Beloved is the next one. Amen, Attaining, Ascent. These are all stellar, amazing pieces, and really changed my not my perspective on Coltrane, but really brought something to the forefront that I hadn't heard before. Before going into this, I've played with many great tenor players or sax players, but specifically tenor players that introduced me to Pharoah Sanders, Anthony Braxton, some of these more kind of Rashawn Roland Kirk, some of these players that were really great innovators and definitely on the free kind of end of things for sure. And then Coltrane kind of bridged that whole gap, from like bebop, hard bop, all of that stuff kind of coming out of Charlie Parker, being the bop era, and just kind of took it and then compositionally made these kind of almost, some of his most famous pieces that are not Countdown or Giant Steps, these kind of virtuosic pieces, are like tone poems, whether it's Equinox or, some of those other amazing pieces that are basically pretty simple changes with an incredible melody. Naima is another one, of course. And I've always been really a huge fan of those. Lonnie's Lament, not so much, but that kind of has a little bit of that character as far as Coltrane pieces go. So, anyway, do yourself a favor. If you love kind of Coltrane and you want to kind of hear something different besides the stuff before like 1964, give this a try. I think you'll be hopefully pleasantly surprised at how interesting and how amazing the playing is. And that band was smoking all the time as far as like how incredible they played. And as you get into those records, I mentioned Live in Seattle, and Live in Japan, you get kind of different variations. I think Reggie Workman is on the Live in Japan, I believe, and Alice Coltrane definitely is the piano player. So you get different textures of these amazing long form pieces. So anyway, do yourself a favor, start with Sunship, move on to Live in Seattle and Live in Japan, and just kind of open your ears. And it's gonna, like I said, those pieces, some of them are basically a side of a record back then. So they're 20, 30 minutes long. And I'll probably talk about those records as well. I love those are huge foundational records for me as far as a listener and as a player, maybe not so much, but they really are something I go back to a lot. And Sunship is one of those. And yeah, so that is it for this Adventurous Music Friday. Please mention your favorite Coltrane record. I'd love to hear what you have as far as what your favorite is. And as we move forward through this, we'll probably start talking about more diversity and other records that may or may not be of your liking. But that's the whole idea, is to kind of talk and kind of discover records together. And I'm definitely going to be pointing out my favorites. So thanks for joining me, and see you next week.